Hey everyone, James Rath here. So this week I want to talk about self-identity, self-identification, how I identify myself. Nowadays, I proudly say that I'm a legally blind filmmaker, or I'm a legally blind person. It wasn't always the case. In fact, probably a year and a half ago it was not the case. Growing up, I never really learned how to use a cane, never considered Braille, never even really thought how to use a guide dog. But reality is, when you're growing up and you no longer have your parents' hand to hold while crossing the street, and you don't have someone else being your eyes without even thinking about it, you start to realize things. I started realizing that, wow, there are things that I might need to help me be more independent now that I live on my own, I'm working now, and that I am in the real world. If you even followed me on social media like a year ago, all my bios would be like, I'm a visually impaired aspiring filmmaker, visually impaired movie maker, whatever. And that's because I identified as visually impaired. Though I do have a visual impairment, legally the term that I have with the degree of vision that I have is legally blind. Now, I didn't like that word blind, personally, for myself. I didn't like the stigmas that came with it, the stereotype. I wasn't a fan of that. Then I realized that's all based on society's, stereotypes, Because the reality is 15% of the visual impairment and legal blind population is totally blind, has no vision whatsoever. That's just a small fraction. I just wasn't a fan of all of that. I didn't want to embrace my visual impairment. I didn't want to get involved in the community. I didn't want to learn more about it. I just wanted to be me. I wanted to fit in with everybody else. The reality is that I don't really fit in with just everybody else. Sure, I have plenty of sighted friends. I probably have more sighted friends than I actually have blind and visually impaired friends. But when they're looking at something or seeing something, I don't really see it the way they see it. And I can't really appreciate everything that's sort of happening. And sometimes, accommodations are sort of over their head, and they don't really think about it because it's not something that they deal with, or they can't see what I'm seeing. So they don't know when I need maybe help or a description of what, everyone's looking at. I started realizing I am blind. I have a blindness that isn't necessarily correctable. Sure, it's great when I have one of these guys, a camera, where I can literally just turn this guy on. It doesn't have a battery in it, but I can turn this guy on and zoom in, and I can get a better look at what's happening. Whatever. The argument is that I just didn't feel like I fit in, and I felt very different. I just didn't fit in. But now that I'm living on my own, I realized how foolish it was for me to sort of separate myself from other people who were visually impaired or blind, because I'm already sort of not fitting in 100% with sighted people, but then I'm isolating myself from this community, that amazing people who are only there to help and support you. Eventually, at some point, I realized how foolish I was. So back when I had a surgery that was very experimental in middle school, I could see better to the point where I was visually impaired. That was it. I wasn't considered legally blind at that point. But the result of that surgery ended up going away after about 3 years, kind of overnight, and I was legally blind again. For several years past the vanish of the results of the surgery, I was still kind of stuck living in the past, trying to live this life that I had when, I had more vision, when I was able to, play sports and see the chalkboard and the whiteboard from the middle of the room, and that's something that I really appreciated, and I feel like people take that for granted, because being legally blind, where my vision is now, I can't even sit in the front row of the classroom in school. I still can't see what the teacher is writing. I can't see any of that. It's all just a big blur. I was stuck living in the past, but eventually I sort of accepted myself. I realized, being more independent now, I need this support. I need to hear other people's experiences. I need to know, what do I do in this scenario when I'm in the city? And eventually I got a cane that I use at night when I can't really see the terrain and I can't see the depth of how far I am from sidewalk. I started self-teaching myself Braille in the last couple months, and that's been pretty neat. And so I'm embracing it now, and I'm happier. Self-identity is important because it's about acceptance. It's about whether you're accepting your disability, whether you're accepting your creative passion thing that you're going after in life. Like for me, it's filmmaking. I accept that I'm a filmmaker. It makes me happy. It makes me me. You know, it's a big part of my life. It's something I'm doing literally like every day, whether I'm writing, directing something in the moment, or editing. I'm creating a film or video production of some sort. And something that I see every time I open my eyes is my blindness. You know, it's something that I know it's there. I'm always aware of it because it's something I'm always sort of battling. You know, I'm a very visual learner. I'm a very visual person, but I have this visual impairment that hinders my learning experience quite a bit. So I have to accommodate that and be more independent and get the support from other people who live like me. So that's sort of my story about self-identity and why I identify as legally blind and not visually impaired, because it's not the correct term for me. I mean, overall, it's a visual impairment, but people who are identified as visually impaired have less or better vision than me. The acuity, it's a lesser number, but vision, it's better, obviously. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. And if you guys just identify as something, let me know down below. Identity's cool because it's about accepting, and it's a big part of your life, and you want to share that, you know? So, cool. I will talk to you guys next time.